Do you have to use your real name as your songwriter name when releasing music? This is a bit tricky. I'm gonna say that right in the beginning of this video. I hate YouTubers that ramble on. I get right to the point in all my videos, but this is not a clear-cut answer. But this is what I'm gonna say as a short answer. Then I'll get into the longer answer. Short answer, as far as I could find or see, there's not any crazy legal thing saying if you don't use your real name as your songwriter name, someone's gonna go after you. But here's a big thing I say to everybody, and I'm saying it on this video. You should absolutely use your real name as your songwriter name when releasing music. Now let me get into the long answer because things get very tricky and technical here, and I am gonna have to give some definitions, right? Because I don't know what it is. For years, I've gotten crazy amounts of DMs, messages, comments about releasing music, whether it's on DistroKid or another platform. I've done all these videos about releasing music. This is a question, and I don't know why, but in the past month or so, I've gotten a lot, almost out of nowhere for some reason. Now, to give some definitions, and this is important to explain very, very clear-cut and very dry. An artist name is the name that you release music under. That is your artist name. So when someone goes to Spotify, for example, they see your artist name. That's the name of the artist that you're releasing music under that they're listening to. A songwriter name is kind of a name that happens well on behind the scenes that says, this is the person who created it. Think of it, and I try to think of like a good example or an analogy for this. Think of this. Think of someone, like say, if you start a company, right? And you have, Joe Schmo's protein powder, right? It's Joe Schmo's protein powder. But then, let's say your real name isn't Joe Schmo. That's just the company name. Your real name is Bob Mike Smith, right? Two very different things. The company's name is Joe Schmo's protein powder, but the CEO is Bob Mike Smith. Now, some people do the exact same where they have it as both the same. Other people are different. Now, bring this now a step further to the music world. For most people, I find it's a bit different. Now, for me personally, in case you're curious, my artist name, the name I release music under is Frachero. My real name is Mark Richard Frachero, which I use as my songwriter name. I use my real name, and you should as well, which I'll talk about in a second. I use my real name as my songwriter name. Now, for most artists, though, taking that a step further, they have it different, right? So, for example, most artists, I use this example a lot, like I just did. They, like, say, release music under an alias. So, I'll just say Joe Schmo. I'm making things simple. You release music under Joe Schmo. That's your artist name. You're Joe Schmo. But your real, in-person name, your actual real name in real life is Bob Mike Smith. Those are different, right? You release music under Joe Schmo, and your real name is Bob Mike Smith. Joe Schmo is your alias. Any single time you release music, like I said, on DistroKid, which is the main distributor I use, or another one, they're going to ask you two things. Typically one once you get going, but typically two. One is, what's the artist name? What is your artist name? Joe Schmo. But every single time you release music, they also want to know, what is your songwriter name? Your songwriter name and your artist name, like I said earlier, are a bit different. Your artist name is the name you're releasing music under. Your songwriter name is more of the behind the scenes, hidden very deep behind the scenes, just the name of the person who's releasing it. And I have had people say, hey, Mark, I'm trying to keep things secret. I don't want anyone to know I'm behind this project. I do think this is a theory, at least at the time of this video. This is my theory as to why in the past month or two, I've gotten this question a lot. I actually think it's because of AI music. That's my theory, because I think a lot of people now are saying, ooh, I can use an AI music generator, which I've done a bunch of videos about. I can release a song, put it under some random artist name that I make up, or have AI make it up if I want to even, to get even more meta. But I don't want people to know it's actually me behind it. I just want to release it for fun and see how it does or whatever, right? That's my theory. I don't know though, right? But anyway, I have had a lot of people say, hey, I want to kind of keep this secret. I don't want people to know. Do I have to use my real name as my songwriter name? Now, like I said, on one end, there's not any crazy legal things saying, okay, if you don't use your real name as your songwriter name, we're going to go after you and sue you and do all this kind of stuff. Not really, but you are exposing yourself to a massive amount of potential issues and this is where things get very tricky on this video, which I'm trying to give you, again, the most simple answer I can, if I can. You're exposing yourself to a massive amount of potential issues if you don't use your real name as your songwriter name. Your songwriter name as your real name is kind of like your stamp saying, this is actually me. This is the real me, the real me, and this is my alias. By having both, it allows you to have way more protection and control and rights over your music in case something goes wrong. Another big reason, and this is big, is pros, or performance rights organizations. I've talked about them a lot on this channel. And to oversimplify those, basically you get paid from your music in different ways. One of them being, as we think about it, if someone downloads your song, if they stream it on Spotify, but also any single time your song is performed. I put that in quotation marks because the term perform or performance can get kind of vague, although it sounds simple at first. But let's say if someone streams your song on Spotify, you get performance royalties because in a sense, that song is being performed. Although when you think about performing, most people think about live music, right? But when you play it on Spotify, in a sense, and I'm oversimplifying this as best I can, it's also being performed. So you get some royalties from the stream, but you also get some royalties from the performance, and you get those from performance rights organizations. For example, here in America, it's different from country to country. We have pros like ASCAP and BMI, et cetera, et cetera. I personally use Songtrust, like I've mentioned before in other videos. They collect rights from pretty much all around the world, and they collect the performance rights from all those different pros from different places around the world, right? So that's what Songtrust does as an example. Now, when I signed up with Songtrust, if I sign up with ASCAP or VMI or another pro, they don't really care as much, per se, about your artist name. They do. But the bigger thing they care about is your songwriter name. Because they're looking into things from a royalty collection perspective, which gets very technical and very tricky. And so if I'm releasing music under Joe Schmo, my real name, as I put, is Bob Mike Smith, a lot of times on ASCAP, they're going to say, okay, we get your song title, we get maybe the ISRC or the UPC or whatever, but what's the songwriter name? They sometimes don't even care about the artist name. They just want to know the songwriter name, and they connect that songwriter name on ASCAP, for example, to the songwriter name that was listed when that release happened. So, a lot's going to get kind of tricky, right? And I know I'm kind of going a bit down the rabbit hole, but I have had people basically on this point ask me, one, do I have to use my real name? Like I said, and again, this is all very important. From an intense, aggressive legal perspective, if you use a different name, are you going to get sued or whatever? Probably not, but I can't say 100%. Just use your real name. It's going to save you a massive amount of work. Because let's say someone tries to steal your song, and you're like, hey, that's me. That's my song. And they're like, well, prove it. Well, for me, it's easy. All my legal documents, my stuff is under my real name, which obviously is all my IDs, my passports, right? It's all connected. But if you make a fake songwriter name and a fake alias, that gets trickier to prove, right? So just use your real name. The second thing now I'm going to touch upon, again, going deeper down the rabbit hole, which again might be a result of AI music, that's my theory, but I might be wrong, is, well, what if you want to say secret? What if you don't want anybody to know? Here's the truth. If you look at different streaming services and different platforms, each one's a little bit different. I will say that. So some provide more information than others. I've mentioned this before when I talked about adding credits on DistroKid, where let's say you're a hip hop artist. You do more of the vocals, but then you have a producer, and you want to give your producer credit. On some platforms, it will give the producer credit right out in front of you. Pretty obvious. It will say, this is the artist, and also they have producer credits to give credits to the producer. Other platforms might hide that and just say the artist's name. It does depend on how many credits or behind-the-scenes stuff a platform's willing to show, and it does depend platform to platform. Is it possible that someone could find out, if you're trying to stay secret, that it is you? The answer is yes. But the amount of digging that it takes, not saying it's an aggressive amount of digging, because again, it does depend upon the service or the platform, but it can be a good amount, right? Again, it definitely depends on each platform. There's some platforms where the songwriter name is not even listed and it's very difficult to find. Other ones, it might be a bit easier. But even so, if you're trying to stay secret, at the end of the day, I'm going to say this, that yes, is it possible that if you're really trying to keep this hidden, someone might be able to find out it's you through an aggressive amount of Google searching and looking at all these different streaming services and tying things together? Potentially. But the truth is, at the end of the day, well, yes, that might be an issue for you that you want to stay secret. You absolutely, though, have to use your real name as your songwriter name. It just, the amount of things it's going to save you, I know this video is kind of going on a little bit longer than I expected, but like, to try to explain things in the best possible manner so you know exactly what's going on, it's going to save you a whirlwind of potential issues in the future. Whether it comes to legal stuff potentially happening, whether it comes to pros and performance rights organizations collecting the right royalties, whether it's things being disconnected from, let's say, your real name to then your songwriter name to now your alias because you decided to use a different songwriter name, things can just get out of control very fast. So basically, to sum up this entire video, just use your real name as your songwriter name.